Everybody is full and everybody is tanned and everybody is relaxed after having a day off due to the holiday. Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers Free Agency Frenzy, along with Derek Bodner and Devon Givens. Kyle Neubeck has the day off. We won't see him until we're in Vegas on Tuesday, but we hope everybody is doing well. Brenna is in here with us today. She's in for Brianna, and we're going to have a good one today, talking to a ton of things, from a mailbag questions and certainly getting into the Buddy Hield trade, which is finally complete. Derek can get us into all the details there. And we have to also talk about the fact that, hey, man, I mean, some things out there that this might be the best trio now in all of the NBA. We'll definitely get into it. As real-time Prince Blue, Derek says he's always tanned. Yes, you are, Prince, and we appreciate it. Hope everybody had a good one, good holiday, had some good food, had a good grub. I'm not going to complain that people did not make us plates and tell us to come get them or reach out to us on Twitter and invite us over, but hey, it's all right. There are more holidays that will come up, man. How are you? How was your holiday?
Good. It was low key, which is exactly what I needed, especially since we have a trip coming up here in a couple of days.
Yep, absolutely. Same here, man. But hey, just to start things off, looking at this team and their moves that have been made, of course, around the NBA while we were off, and some minor moves. And still, the Sixers need to do some minor moves as well. But just focusing on what we know as the marquee free agent this summer being Paul George, the Sixers, Daryl Morey, the front office, he and Elton Brand and the group were able to lock in Paul George as the big fish and getting him. But looking at the team now, Derek, and we put this out on social media already and headlining things here, discussing how this team right now may, and that's why it's a discussion, because other cities with three players are going to say, no, they're not better than ours. They haven't even played a game yet. But looking at it and just hearing from other people around the association and seeing how they're looking at this team, adding Paul George to Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, do they have the best trio of players from 1 through 3, star level power, all-star level players, MVP when it comes to Joel Embiid, Paul George in the past, and certainly where Tyrese Maxey is at this moment? There's a real discussion of, are they the best three when we talk about big threes in the NBA as we currently sit here?
Yeah, and it's a little tough, I think, because a lot of it depends on how you want to define that. Are they the most accomplished big three? No, of course not.
No.
Have they proven the most in the playoffs? No, of course not. Have you seen them play literally a game together? No, of course not. We all get that. As my cat is absolutely losing her mind.
That's all right. We saw it.
Longtime listeners of the Sixers Beat will know that I live in a 2-bedroom loft, so I have an open room on both sides, so there's no locking them out, and she's in a mood right now. Anyway, so there's all of those disclaimers out of the way. If you were talking just a regular season big three with Joel Embiid playing at the best player in the world level, then I would say you would have to say yes, because pretty much every other contender is really more either one of two: a big two and then a whole bunch of role players around them, or like a big two with then two really excellent role players, but still not someone who you would traditionally classify as a third star. So when you talk about someone playing at an MVP caliber level in Joel Embiid, and then two players who complement him pretty much perfectly and are both arguably top 20 to top 30 players, yes, on paper, in the regular season, they have a big three. There's a couple of disclaimers there, though. Like when you start looking at like Tatum and Brown, and the fact that they just won a championship, or Jokic and Murray, the fact that they won a championship, yeah, they have a lot more help around them than the big three, but you might just give it to those big two just because they have accomplished more. And because of, like I said, the depth that they have in Boston case, 5 deep, certainly with the Nuggets, 4 solid deep, you might take those groupings over the Sixers. And there's certainly an argument for that. But if the core definition is just big three and star talent around the big three, and there will be some debate whether or not that is even the way to build a team. We had that debate earlier on in the summer. I think what you're seeing with the new collective bargaining agreement and how terrified teams are of that second apron, that is a debate we will have for years to come. But if you are just talking about pure big three, traditional big three, then they're certainly in the running.
And that's all we're talking about right now, because we couldn't argue anything about success as a trio because they haven't played a minute together. They haven't played a second yet in the NBA. When we're just simply looking at where their roster is, starting it off, of course, building it out with Joel Embiid, moving over to Tyrese Maxey and what he has turned himself into and hopefully getting better. And then adding in Paul George, who even at this age of 34, Derek, we're still talking about an all-star caliber player, a player that we know can come in right now, give you 29, 5, and 4, maybe 25, 6, 22, 6, and 5, somewhere around there, maybe even a little bit more. I mean, add into that. And then you look at the defensive side where he is not the same type of player defensively, but he didn't lose it. He still knows how to do it. It's just a matter of the age catching up to him, and he can't be as dynamic as that two-way player that he once was. But when looking at the three, and you're pointing out you have the most dominant big man, there's, of course, an argument to be made if he's the best player in the game, the best big man in the game. He and Nikola Jokic can hash that out when the regular season gets underway. But when we look at dominant, he's the most dominant big man in the game right now, and certainly you can argue 5 to 10 in the league overall. And when you look at Tyrese Maxey, an all-star, he is one of the best young guards, but he's turned himself, Derek, and he's put together enough of a resume over the last 2 seasons in particular, where you look at him and say he's one of the best guards. No matter the size, no matter the position that you want to call it, point guard, combo guard, shooting guard, he's one of the best guards in the NBA. He established himself as that as an all-star a season ago. And Paul George is one of the, still, even at 34, with all of the questions that are there hovering over him at this age, one of the better wing players in the NBA. He may not be able to do it as much as some of the other young wing players in the NBA. When we start to talk about Jalen Williams, we can, of course, look at what Shea and Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren are right now for the Oklahoma City Thunder. But as far as wings go, he is still in the conversation of discussion of one of the best wings in the game. He may not be top 5, but he's still in that conversation of that. So when you play it all out and you put those 3 guys together and look at who they are as a trio, and then what we hope that they accomplish, what the Sixer fans certainly hope that they accomplish, yeah, you're looking at maybe arguably the best trio in the NBA for what you expect from them when they step on the floor in late September and into October. That's why the pressure is going to be huge. The expectations are going to be high. And there's going to be a lot expected of these 3 players to lead this team to a championship contention because of the fact that they are that good when you start to pair them up against other trios, or the 2, as you mentioned, with maybe a better 4, because the 3 and the 4 are maybe not all-stars, but they're certainly complementary pieces that make them what they are surrounding their big 2 in whatever cities they are.
Yeah. And just having this conversation, it says 2 things to me. First of all, we've hit a bit of a lull in the slop season. Like, there has not been a lot going on across the NBA. A lot of comments in the chat. Well, what about the rest of the roster? We get it. We spent a couple days talking about it. Nothing has really changed outside of a Buddy Hield trade, which we'll get to in the next segment. But there's a little bit of a lull here in what's going on across the league.
Not to mention, we talked about them on Tuesday and Wednesday about filling out the rest of the roster and adding that depth.
You can only have the same conversation so many days in a row before you change it up. You know what I mean?
Right.
The other thing is that so much of this conversation comes down to whether or not you truly believe that Joel Embiid can be the same player in the playoffs that he can be in the regular season and has been in the regular season. And so much of the Sixers title equity and whether or not you are excited about the team, whether or not you are excited about the Paul George signing, comes back to that very fact itself. If you believe that Joel Embiid, with the right pieces around him, can be the best player on the floor, the Sixers have as much championship odds as any other team in the league. And right now, Vegas has them, like second to win the East, something like that.
Yep.
So if you believe that, like, Tyrese Maxey and his growth and the gravity he has on ball and the way he can shoot off ball, Paul George and the way that he has turned himself into a high volume elite 2-way wing, if you believe those 2 can help Joel Embiid maintain his effectiveness against the best defenses in the league, you're probably really freaking psyched about this team and really psyched about the addition of Paul George. But if you doubt whether or not Joel Embiid can reach those levels, sustain that play in the playoffs when teams are scheming against him, when he's facing the best defense in the league for a 7-game series, you're probably like, well, they're shuffling chairs on the Titanic. And both are sort of valid. I think I probably have a rosier picture of what Joel Embiid is capable of when he's surrounded by better teammates than he has been in the past. But that is very much a question mark that is something to bring up. And because of that, this conversation of whether or not they have the best big 3 in the league, I think in the regular season, the case is pretty clear. In the playoffs, I understand some skepticism. And we're basically talking about this because Tim Bontemps of ESPN brought it up and said they do have the best big 3. And then there was Brian Windhurst, who's said something, I'm paraphrasing here, that he is sick of hearing about Paul George in the offseason. This is the fourth time now he's changed teams where he has been the marquee free agent or a player. Some of those were trades, changing teams, and it's never led to anywhere. And that's a little bit unfair, I think, to Paul, in part because Paul's playing a very different role here. And first of all, I don't think OKC was ready to contend at that stage anyway, but in part because Paul George is playing a different role here than he was in with the Clippers. He's not asked to be the featured guy or co-featured guy. He is the third guy. And because of that, he might be able to succeed in a role that he wasn't when the previous role he wasn't able to. But it also just shows it's really tough to win in the NBA. And whether that's staying healthy, whether that's getting the luck you need, whether that's surrounding with supporting talent, it is real tough. So I think it is, like I said, on paper, if you're just talking big three, I think sort of disqualifying those big two plus two elite role player groups, I think there's certainly a case, but they have to prove it in playoffs, which is what this entire season is about.
That's what it's all about. You get this player, you pay this kind of money, both to Paul George and giving the extension to maybe later on to Joel Embiid, and certainly inking in your future star and Tyrese Maxey for the reason of the postseason. We always say this, Derek, and I know I've been saying it all the way back to the radio, knowing you as long as I have known you when they started to make the playoffs. Yeah, we watch the games during the regular season because we love basketball, and then it's our job. So that's the other part too. We have to talk about it. But we also watch it because you want to see what tendencies, what things that happen during the regular season build up to the postseason for them as they try for that quest for a title. And that's the beauty of the game, and watching it, as long as it is 82 games and going through game by game and overreacting to some and overreacting to the losses and the wins in general. But it's because of what it builds up to into the postseason. So when you get a player like Paul George, there's no more we worry about 50 wins. That stopped about 4 years ago. Yep. It's now about 50 wins. Okay, cool. Let's talk about the seeding when we get to right around February, because you're fighting with Boston and Milwaukee. And now there's some other teams like New York and Cleveland, Orlando that are now in the mix. But you make a move like this to make sure you have that third. And when we talk about the big three in this particular case for this particular franchise and this group of players, especially Joel Embiid, there have been playoff missteps. There have been disappointments over the years. And that's why we don't care about the win season total in general with the regular season, because it now is all about the postseason and what they're able to do. So when you have seen struggles from Embiid or even Maxey, and then you go back to some of the others in past where it has been Ben Simmons or Al Horford and Jimmy Butler getting knocked out, Tobias Harris, the list goes on and on. You're trying to find that next guy that can help out when it comes to, we're in a close game, we're in a tough situation. It's either we need a shot to be made or we need to stop at the other end on the perimeter where we don't let somebody just get right by us and pull up for a jumper or get to the rim and challenge Joel Embiid to finish. And that's why he was brought in here. So that's why for this particular group, the three made sense because of where you needed that other third, the importance of that other third player as a two-way guy, a wing that can do a multitude of things on the basketball floor. We even discussed, should they go in the other direction and build out kind of like you said with the Denver model of Jokic and Murray are your two stars, and then you have the other players that are stars in their roles. And in this particular case, it may not have worked out that way because you know why? They didn't have the success yet in the postseason to say that that is the way that they can go. They probably did need that star. It may not have worked for other teams to go out there. It may not even work for the Clippers to keep him at the money that he wanted. But for the Philadelphia 76ers, they absolutely needed this. And when you look at the three that they currently have, everything is going to ride on what they do when they get to the playoffs and finally get past that second round into the Eastern Conference Finals and not settle. It's about winning championships. And that's why Paul George is here. He is 34. I don't know that he's going to play as long as LeBron James at the level as LeBron James is going to play. He's trying to win now. So that was a calculated decision of what he did, of trying to look at his future, where he is right now. He knows his body better than anybody. And I would imagine he thinks and knows that at some point it's going to break down on him where he can no longer be that type of player that warrants the type of money that he thinks he does, because he still has that same skill level to go out there and do it at the age of 38. So he has his window from 34 to 38 to try to get it done right now. And for the Sixers and him, Embiid, Maxey, the front office, hopefully that's sooner than later.
Yeah. And look, nobody plays at a high level as long as LeBron has. He's completely unique in the history of the NBA.
Right.
It would be
Right.
unrealistic to hold Paul George to that standard. And by the way, Paul George won't be as old as LeBron at the end of this contract. I think one thing that has, when we were debating, all debating, which of these stars to pursue, the fact that Paul George is such a comfortable high volume 3-point shooter, he has that high release, he's got that, size where he can shoot over the defense. I think he is going to age relatively gracefully into his, 35, 36, 37, 38-year-old seasons. Does that mean that of course there will be a drop off towards the end of this contract? Of course, the defense is going to take a hit as he gets older, especially with lower body injuries. But I do think the skill set is one, and the size and the profile is one that should age fairly well. And
Mhm.
hopefully by that point, Tyrese Maxey is just such a supernova offensive player that you don't need more than Paul George to be a super role player. When you started looking at some of the other options outside of maybe OG Anunoby, most of them didn't transition well into being a super role player. Paul George can. And I think that's one reason why this might, age a little more gracefully than some people think.
Yeah, and before we get to our next segment and before we get to our super chats a little bit later, I wanted to highlight something that Jay Bart said here in our chat, Derek, which was whether it works or not, we had zero choice but to try it. There was no one else with his skill set. You just praise that he stays healthy.
Yeah, I mean,
And
look. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, and I think that's a fair way of looking at it. That other teams outside of Philadelphia and maybe even Orlando, of course, with the cap space, OKC has been there. They've done that. They didn't go after him. And I think San Antonio was the other team that could also try to fit him in under their structure of their contract and their cap space. The Sixers are in a position where they did have to try it. They did have to see if it works out for them.
And look, they wasted the first half of Joel Embiid's prime building around Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris. There ain't nothing Daryl Morey can do to get that time back.
Right.
When
right.
you talk about drafting Tyrese Maxey and now adding Paul George, at least you have two high-level players who fit. And we can now see whether or not Joel Embiid can manipulate the defense in a way that he couldn't earlier in his career, both because he has the experience on his side and also now he has floor spacing on his side. I cannot stress enough how much Ben Simmons not being able to shoot and Tobias Harris being unwilling to shoot just crowded things up for Joel Embiid and made it more difficult and made it so that, really locked in defenses could tee off of that. Having Maxey and Paul George instead of those two is just massive. It's massive.
Yep. Yep. I want to ask you something on the other side. Now that you bring that up of what he having Maxey and George, the defensive side of things. We'll talk about that. Certainly get into Buddy Hield. We'll do that once we get back here after our first break right here on the PHLY Sixers free agency frenzy. It's slowed down, but it's still a frenzy presented by Rothman Orthopedics.
For that, the Sixers still have, some hiring they have to do here in free agency. If you're looking to do some hiring, we want to tell you about Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match. Match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work, use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Devon, I'm sure this ad read was perfect, but you're muted.
We are headed to Vegas next week, and with us being in Vegas, the Shady Rays, we need to bring our shades because it's going to be hot, it's going to be sunny, and there's a lot of future stars out there. So the future is bright for many people. So getting ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for outdoor adventures. So if you were out at a cookout on July 4th, and if you were out at the beach, whatever you were doing, hanging out with friends and family, and you said, man, I forgot my shades. Well, the easiest way for you to have gotten a pair ahead of time was through Shady Rays. They have hundreds of options to choose from, bound to find your perfect fit to match your style. They probably have a style in your favorite team's color as well. If you don't love your shades that you currently have, or even when you do get a pair from Shady Rays, you exchange them for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com, use code PHLY, and that's for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right.
There we go.
Welcome back. As long as I didn't have things muted, we were good, right? We're coming off of a holiday.
Look, the mute button is great because like I can like take a drink, you won't hear it. It's perfect.
That's right.
But every now and then it leads us astray and gets us into trouble. That's okay.
That's it. That's all right. That's why it's always good to be transparent and honest when you make a mistake like that. You make fun.
Well, there's no hiding that one, buddy. We couldn't hear you.
No, not at all. Not at all. But look, man, when you made the point about Paul George and of course Tyrese Maxey in the offensive end, I wanted to ask you this, of course, with the trio and how good they are. He is still a decent defensive player out there in the wing, and he's going to have more responsibility here because there's no Kawhi Leonard there with him. Kelly Oubre showed us some things. Kelly Oubre was pretty good at times, and I think he will probably still be pretty good as a defender now out there year 2 of Nick Nurse's team. But how much do you think Paul George is going to help Joel Embiid defensively, where so much we would look at it and say, man, if only somebody can get a stop on a perimeter that's not named DeAnthony Melton?
Yeah, and look, I think Paul George is at a stage of his career where you probably don't want him going up against the opponent's best wing scorer every night. I think Paul George probably doesn't want to go up against the opponent's best wing scorer every night. He has to save some of that energy for on the defensive side of the floor. But just having another player who's capable might not be for, defending that guy 35 minutes per game. It might be for 5 or 10 minute stretches. Just having another guy who you can switch and credibly hold up. That's one thing that I really value is being able to switch where even if you have a slight mismatch, it's better than the opportunities you get and the advantages that are created off of a pick and roll and having to go either over or under that screen. So I think just having more versatility in size is going to be big. And I do think Paul, for stretches, can dial it up. For, like I said, for stretches, for plays, for moments, I think he can meet that from time to time. So I think he's going to be a good defender. I don't think he's a great defender at this stage. I don't think he's a guy who would be, making all defensive teams, like I said, at 34, 35 years old. But I do think he'll be useful. I think he's pretty far above being a negative defender. I think he's above a neutral defender. I think he's a positive defender, just maybe not quite a shutdown or a great defender.
Yeah. I think he still has it in him. I would probably say, and look, you know how guys are out there on the floor and they take it personally first, right? So he might call for, no, I want this matchup tonight. And instead of he'll take the reins and Kelly Oubre will take the second player out there on the perimeter, and Tyrese Maxey and whoever else will be in that starting lineup. Maybe they'll fall somewhere along those lines. But, pride wise, he's probably going to still believe that he can go out there and defend. But when it comes to taking the best possible player out there, and we're looking at, hey, you got to go out there. There are games where you're going to have 2 of them, and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. So they're both going to have that assignment unless someone else comes in. But I still think he does have it in him. And then, like we always talk about, Zubac is definitely a nice center where he can do things as a 7-footer to help you on the back end. He has played with Roy Hibbert, but Roy Hibbert, as good as he was.
Do bells not count? Do we not stop for bells?
Oh,
Turk Smith is on the Portland Trailblazers summer league roster.
Is he?
So
okay.
Shout out to Turk Smith.
All right, Turk. I'm glad he was able to land on his feet. Yeah. All right. So there's the bell.
Sorry, go ahead. I wanted to point out Turk finding a spot. That's all.
I'm happy for him because we did like Turk, and we hope that he is able to find his way in the NBA. But when looking at it, you're going to have those times where you play Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Both of you are going to have to go out there and do it. But maybe I give Joel Embiid too much credit for things, but having that player behind you to help clean up anything that gets by, I think that's going to help out when it comes to Paul George's, Kelly Oubre, and whoever else might be a wing out there on the floor, even the guards, when you have the big fella behind you.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of this conversation is going to come down to what can they do next, because they do need more than 2 wing defenders, and right now they have about 2 wing defenders, 3 if you count Ricky, and if his offense has progressed enough where he can stay on the floor. But it would be great to have another one, which is why we spent a lot of time talking about the next move. And again, which is why we were asked 2 days ago, what do we prioritize for that power forward? Is it rebounding? Is it shooting? Is it defense? If you could pick 2 out of 3, for me, it's defense and shooting. They just need more. And I would prefer a more wing-sized power forward than a center-sized power forward because of that versatility, because it's more likely to come with that shot. But they definitely, they have a chance to be an elite defensive squad, but they need to finish out the rest of the roster, which is why we spent the last week talking about it. But I think this is a good start.
And we will certainly talk about another player that we discussed on Wednesday at a little bit more at length after the next break. But we do have to talk. Well, first, Aaron says, Aaron says that, the frenzy has become a whimper when Turk Smith's Summer League news has that bell ringing. LOL.
Hey, he deserved that bell.
He did.
We will take no Turk Smith slander. But yes, it has slowed down a little bit.
It has, but isn't it funny though? Because day one we do the show 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock we start. We get out of there about 8 o'clock. Nothing is happening. We got Andre Drummond, Luke Cornett, James Harden, and that was it. And from June 30th to now where we are July 5th. And look, there's still good names out there. DeMar DeRozan is out there, not just for his showing up in the Kendrick Lamar video that dropped yesterday. I can mess with my kid about that, my daughter, because we have a nice back and forth about the Drake and Kendrick stuff going on. But DeMar DeRozan showing up in the video. And then you have, who else? Caleb Martin, we'll get to him a little bit later, and so many others to just discussing. Yes, that's where we are. Free agency moves fast. That's why the frenzy is what the frenzy is when it comes to that being the NBA free agent summer league period, because man, it goes fast and guys don't want to miss out on their money, and they have to take it. And that's why we have to get into Buddy Hield right now, because Buddy Hield, we discussed it on Wednesday, the possible trade with the Golden State Warriors, just waiting to see if there are additional things to add on to it. Well, Derek, it was reported that the Sixers got back a 2031 second round pick for completing this sign and trade deal with Buddy Hield going to the Golden State Warriors. For you,
not excited about that?
Well,
you didn't seem very excited, Devon.
Well, the kid is still watching cartoons right now.
A lot of these adults are still watching cartoons too.
Yeah. I mean, I still watch some of the cartoons as well, especially with me and my daughter. Even though she's 17, we have our favorites from her childhood, and we'll still keep up with them. But I just to break down, number one, was this about what you expected? And number two, what does this do to their overall asset building of their picks stash that they have now?
Yeah, I think this was mostly about what I expected. There was, when it came out, I think it was initially reported that the Warriors were interested in at like 12:30 at night, because it seems like all news about the Sixers happens past midnight. And there was a lot of Sixers Twitter then trying to figure out, like, how can this be a sign that they're going to, swing this into a trade for Dorian Finney-Smith? And like, how can we connect all of these dots and insert meme now? I think I always expected it would just be a second round pick or two. So it's really minor. It has almost no impact on the Sixers. There has been some, so I guess 2 questions. First of all, I think it was Sean Edwards in the chat was asking how the Warriors could do this. They could do this because they had a trade exception. I think it was actually the trade exception generated from the Clay trade.
Yes.
So they got a trade exception from that. A trade exception it's called a non-simultaneous trade. It basically allows you to absorb contract to make up the difference of a previous trade. So in the Clay trade, the Warriors sent out a lot of money, didn't get back any in return because of that. They got a trade exception of that amount. We're able to then swing that for for Buddy Hield. That is that. Now, there's been some question over whether or not the Sixers are hard capped, and I don't believe they are. First of all, if you acquire a player in a sign and trade, you do get hard capped at the first apron. But then there's also if you send out a player in a sign and trade and you get back an exception that you'll use later, I think that's one of the conditions that you can be hard capped. But I think because the Sixers will be under the cap when they execute this trade, I don't think they should be hard capped, and they didn't get a player back either. So I think they should be safe in that regard. If they were, it would be the second apron anyway, and the Sixers are not going to go over the second apron. That's really restrictive. It's probably academic. You don't have to worry about that. The key is they're definitely not hard capped at the first apron. So there's really almost no impact for the Sixers. The impact is that they got a second round pick 7 years in the future that nobody gives a shit about. They got something for nothing, basically.
Yeah, and it's cool to get something back. They got something for nothing. But as far as a player goes, even though he did not pan out the way that the team wanted him to, you did lose another shooter. And they still have to figure out a way, at least, where he was a specialist coming in. And while you don't want your roster filled with players to do that, Eric Gordon, could he be filling that role? Maybe. It's a possibility. But they still need some more shooting. And adding that shooting somewhere in that range of some of the other players that we talked about, looking at these other free agents, could the trade still be out there? We could probably talk about the Paul George potential still of movement there with him, that maybe that brings that player in. They lose a shooter, and that's unfortunate. Looking back on his second half of the season and his postseason, I think we all agree that it was disappointing. How disappointed are you that it didn't work out as much as we thought when Joel Embiid got back out there on the floor?
Yeah, I'm disappointed because, quite frankly, based on what Buddy Hield has been up to this point in his career, he ended up getting, I think the first 2 years are a combined $18 million in his contract with the Warriors. So when you're talking about that $8-9 million annual salary range, based on what he's been up to this point, he's been worth that. Now, the last couple months with the Sixers, is that just who he is at this point in his career? Or was it a changing teams, changing systems, changing players around him because Joel Embiid came back towards the end? Is the fact that he just didn't play enough next to Joel Embiid? Did Nick Nurse not use him correctly? Those are all fair questions. I think this is a very reasonable contract for Buddy Hield. So yeah, you're a little disappointed it didn't work out. And this is, quite frankly, a contract they could have given Buddy Hield and still been able to get Paul George. So they opted not to keep him. And I don't begrudge him for that. Like next to Tyrese Maxey, ideally you would get more size next to him, which is why we spent our last show talking about Caleb Martin, about Hayward Highsmith, players of that ilk who can bring a little bit more defensively and are not solely reliant on that shooting and on that gravity. But I think this is a fair contract for Buddy. So yeah, I think it's disappointing. It's disappointing for that player that you gave up. But they gave up 2 or 3.
I think it was 3.
3. I think it was 3. Didn't work out. That a player who has a skill set that theoretically could fit next to Joel Embiid didn't work out. But I do think that size, that lack of size more specifically, made him a questionable fit next to Tyrese Maxey. So this isn't necessarily a contract I would have wanted the Sixers to give him, even if I do think it is fair.
Yeah, it stinks though, because that first 6 games, he was really, really good. Really good. Yeah. Surprised us a lot in those first 6 games with his playmaking. Of course, the shooting was there, but it was the playmaking for not only his teammates, but also for himself, finishing at the rim with the left-handed layups. And then when you saw him again against the Knicks and some of those teams down the stretch in the regular season on that 8-game winning streak before they got into the play-in tournament, he couldn't finish a layup with the left hand. And, it was just tough to see how he started off really, really high, made some people into believers who were not expecting him to do anything except for just simply make shots, and he did not make enough shots for the team. Brian Pumper says in the chat, it's the Buddy Hield experience. That's why he doesn't start on the last 2 teams that he was a part of, because it's the experience of Buddy Hield. I'm very curious to see how that works out, because with Moody, Melton now, and Buddy Hield, I'm very, very curious to see what Steve Kerr sees there of how he's going to use Buddy Hield. We know that there's a lot of movement. They can probably ask him to do a lot of the Klay Thompson stuff within their offense. But I'm very curious to see and see how he plays off of those guys in that offense and see what he does. Yeah. Tobias Harris taking another shot on the way out of the door. Flyers in 7. Tobias affected everything around him. His gravitational suckness was too much. LOL. And
Yeah,
that's why, buddy.
Look, when you add up how much money he got and how many minutes he received over the last 5 years, it's just it was a startling bad fit.
Gravitational suckness is funny because of him blaming Tobias Harris. All right, Tobias Harris now with the Detroit Pistons. We still think he got too much money, but good for him. It just adds to that. That's a nice tab he has here over the course of his career.
Yes,
in terms of the money that he has earned. When we come back, we do have to talk about another guy that we discussed on Wednesday at length, and we've seen his name here in the chat a little bit, and that is one Caleb Martin, because we did get a little bit, Derek, at least from the Miami side of things, about how much money he could have been seeking when he opted out. Do the Sixers find their way into the conversation or not? We'll talk about that when we get back right here on the Free Agency Frenzy, presented by our good friends from Rothman Orthopedics. And with Rothman, as we talk about them, are your joints aching, your hands cramping, back out of whack a little bit? Well, that can be the case. You just ran up and down the beach. You played some beach football. You maybe done a little bit of basketball that you probably felt like you shouldn't have, and you're paying for right now. Well, Rothman's got you. At Rothman Orthopedics, practicing specialized care that has been their passion for over 50 years. Their mission: high quality, compassionate, and affordable care rooted in research that's leading to new treatments and better outcomes. Each Rothman doc is laser focused on their specialty, like hip, knee, spine, you name it. They have a team for each body part right in your backyard. So your crossover, right? You can get that back. You can drain those jumpers, root for your teams like no other fans in the country. Once again, once you're all healed up and they help put you back together, they're Rothman Orthopedics, and they specialize in you and me, because they did my ACL in 2019 and my Achilles last summer. And I'm good to go. I'm ready to get back out there. So don't anybody out there challenge me, because I will accept it, because I feel like I'm all good thanks to Rothman. Rothman patients will find the full spectrum of orthopedic care at Rothman Orthopedics, from diagnosis to discharge. They provide their patients with every service and procedure necessary, such as x-rays, orthotics, bracing, MRIs, physical therapy, and more. I had most of those, and I'm good to go now. And year over year, Rothman consistently performs among the highest volume of hip, knee, shoulder, and ankle replacements in the country. That's over 60,000. So if you are looking to find a place to go check you out to make sure you're good after that vigorous playing that you did and maybe got banged up a little bit during the holiday, Rothman Orthopedics specialize in orthopedics, and you visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make an appointment today.
We also want to make sure we tell you about our Die Hard program. Look, Kyle and I have spent, not Devon, that's fine. We love him anyway. Kyle and I spend a lot of time in the Discord. We answer a lot of questions. A lot of these salary cap things I try to address in there. Kyle dropped some inside info last night on the Discord. I won't mention it here because, quite frankly, that is a benefit to being in the Die Hard. If you want the latest slop, come join.
I'm not in the Die Hard. What did he say? I am a Die Hard member. But what did he say?
That's too bad. Log the fuck in, Devon.
My bad.
But that's great. You get all access to all of our written content. There's events. You get discounts on merch. You get a free t-shirt, all of that stuff. There is a golf outing, a PHLY scramble tomorrow, actually. Tomorrow's the last day to register for it, coming up here on July 13th. Unfortunately, we will not be there because we will be in Vegas for the Summer League, but you can come out, meet the rest of our on-air, I hate the word talent, meet the rest of our hosts. That's a much better word for it. You can come hang out, like I said, play golf. I suck at golf. I would have shown up and embarrassed myself just because I think it's worthwhile to do so and be embarrassed in front of you guys. But it'll be a great event that hopefully the next time we do it, Devon and I will be able to be in attendance. We'll have to talk to them about that. Like mid-July, we're probably going to be busy. So let's not do that. But like I said, Die Hard's great. And truthfully, like hanging out in the Discord, being able to chat. Look, the internet can be shitty, right? It can be shitty. Twitter, pretty much anywhere. It's a lot of angry people yelling at each other. Devon is, I think, probably the nicest of us because I think he probably spends the least amount of time online. Kyle and I are kind of chronically online. The great thing about Die Hard, everyone in there is respectful. Everyone in there loves what you love. It's a shared community. You're paying to be there, so you want to make sure you stay there. Everyone is well behaved. We're just there to talk basketball. We're not there to yell at you. We're not there to call anyone names. Nobody in there is there to do that. It's turned into a great forum. I really think that's become one of the selling points. So go check that out. AllPHLY.com.
I am not a good golfer.
I'm
Fantastic
awful. I swing it like a baseball bat. It doesn't work at all.
That's my problem. I'm fantastic at miniature golf. We can go at it there. My kids will attest to that.
I've tried. Me and my two brothers have tried playing even just like chip and putt. And my brother swings it because my brother was a hockey player. He swings it like a hockey stick, and it just doesn't work at all. Golf is one of those things where I feel like you've got to put in the time to get past the barrier, because until you get past that barrier, it's going to be the most frustrating game in the world. And I never committed to getting past that barrier. It pisses me off every time I try.
Yeah. So,
but I would, if we were available and not on the road, I would have embarrassed myself in front of all of you guys because I love you all that much.
Well, this is probably going to be an annual thing, so we'll be out there at some point. I actually just got an invite. So if you want to go embarrass yourself, we can put together a foursome and we can go out there and donate some money and go out there and do so. I'll talk to him about it. Maybe he'll come on the show to talk about the invite that I just got. So before I tore my Achilles, by the way, Martian Lynch 33 said that Devon's got a 3D printed Achilles.
I've got a 3D printer, buddy. I can print you an Achilles.
I have a 3D printed Achilles. Brian Knight says confirmed. And Darkness says I'm a T1000, but a cyborg of love. Thank you, fellas. We appreciate it. Love it. That's what we do here in the Discord, and it's part of the family. Have some fun. And this is good. But before I tore my Achilles, just a quick golf story since I'm not good. My cousin, who Jack, Mikhail's dad, he golfed.
Oh, I never met him. He was a fill-in. He'll have to come in sometime when we're here.
Yes, and he golfs, and he's pretty good. And he has asked me to come out there for years. I have resisted, and he finally got me out there last summer. Sometime, I think it was June. So we started going out, not too far from where he lives, where I live. We meet in the middle there, and we go out there and we get some work in. And it was because we were going to be in a scramble like this one for, the company that I used to be with. And we were going to do that. He was going to be a part of my team with some listeners to come in and all that stuff. And then I go play basketball 2 weeks later and I popped my Achilles. So I was starting to get to that side a little bit. You were so
desperate not to play golf that you popped an Achilles to get out of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's how it worked. And that's how I became so close with Rothman Orthopedics, our sponsor here on our show. And of course,
people think that's a bit. Well, I mean, Devon had a boot on when we first started setting up the company.
Yeah. So I am going to get back out there. He's still trying to get me out there.
Here's what I'll say. Since we can't make the golf event, maybe what we should do, there's a Top Golf out there in Vegas. Maybe we should, three of us go to Top Golf. We can record it and we can post how embarrassing we are.
We can do that. Yeah, we can do that.
Maybe just drop it into Discord and only our Discord members can see how awful we are. I'll make it like an unlisted YouTube video or something.
If you want to see how terrible we are badly enough, then you have to sign up for the Die Hard program.
There you go. That's a hell of a sales pitch right there.
That is a hell of a sales pitch. Absolutely. But I am good at miniature golf. I can do that. Okay. All right. So looking at now, Caleb Martin. There was a report coming out of Miami, Derek, and it was a little bit of terms there for the number that he was actually looking for, which was I guess a little surprising when you do opt out of, I think it was like 7.9.
Yeah, it was like right 7 or 8 million.
Yeah, 7.9 million, somewhere around there. But the number, I just want to pull it up here and give the credit where credit is due, is from, pardon me, this is at Florida Sports Buzz in Miami, Barry Jackson saying that he reportedly declined an extension from the Heat earlier in the offseason and was said to be seeking $15 million annually. He is no longer staring that contract down because Miami took that one off the table, of course. Smaller numbers are out there. So with that being said, Derek, we've talked about how you can maybe pull somebody in there, move Paul Reed with his 7.7, create enough space. You're right at the number when you were discussing Dorian Finney-Smith and his just under 15, but in that $14 million number, he's seeking 15. It doesn't seem like he's going to get what he wants out there in the open
I am
market.
Also seeking $15 million per year.
Yes.
We'll see.
Yes. Negotiate with Vince. Yes. Yes,
No,
but
I mean,
so
look, there's
when you hear that number, what is that? I mean, he has to be realistic here at this stage. He's one that's probably going to take a hit.
yeah, and I forget who it was. There was somebody in the chat bringing up that the middle class in the NBA is taking a hit this summer. I think it's 100% true. I spent most of the last 6 months saying that I think the middle class of the NBA is going to be a lot tougher for them to negotiate contracts that they're comfortable with than it used to be. I think this essentially a hard cap on the second apron, and teams are operating as if it's a hard cap. I think that is going to cause them to, be very, very cautious on these role player contracts. And it has to be a perfect fit. It has to be the right person. It has to be someone you believe in. Otherwise, it'll either be short term or it'll be less dollars. And I think he's seeing that. And look, the Heat, I'm not 100% sure what the Heat salary structure is. I think they're like right up at that second apron territory. Like they've got to count every penny they spend. It's going to be real tough for them to keep both Martin and Highsmith, which is, I think, why we pinpointed them the other day. It is almost impossible for them to give them both the contracts they are looking for. So, he might be looking for $15 million. I don't think there's a team out there that's going to give it to him. Maybe he creeps up closer to that full mid-level. That I think is probably his max. But even there, I think teams are going to be very judicious in giving them out. Especially, like, it's one thing to give it out for DeAnthony on a 1-year deal. For a multi-year deal, teams are going to be cautious about making these kind of commitments going forward. So I'm not ready to completely dismiss the Sixers as a possibility here. I don't know whether or not they will ultimately win it, but I think a lot of these players are going to be settling for less than they expect. And I think that's probably why when we talk about the market cooling, I think that's a reason. I think there's just some players who haven't yet or aren't yet willing to grasp the new reality.
And there's some buzz out there. Other reports, again, there's still reports all over the place. And one of the reports is that with DeMar DeRozan still hanging out there as the top remaining free agent in terms of names, that maybe there's a sign and trade situation there with the Chicago Bulls where Caleb Martin might have to be involved in that to head back to Chicago, DeMar DeRozan to the Miami Heat. And if that's the case, then that's good for him because that's something that I'm sure that he wants. He wants that money, but the Sixers might be able to capitalize on the opportunity that he is still out there without the kind of deal that he feels like he's deserving of.
Yeah.
Yep.
100%.
So yeah, and I thought they signed somebody. Did Miami sign somebody like to a smaller deal? But I can't remember. I thought I saw something, but I thought if that was the case, then they were going to have to choose between, to your point, Highsmith or Martin, which would make it a little bit easier, or not easier, but a better opportunity for the Sixers and Daryl Morey to try to swoop in there and steal that player, maybe on a cheaper deal than they would like, but to come in here and help this basketball team out. But I mean, he's still out there. Same as out there for Caleb Martin and for Haywood Highsmith as they put together. And one more on the Sixers note, we keep saying this, and I bring this up too because every time he sees his name in social media as one of the top free agents remaining, or as Keith Pompey of the Inquirer.com reported that the Sixers were showing interest in Marcus Morris, his name keeps popping up being attached to Philadelphia. We had fun with it, and he did have some good moments with the Sixers. Had some tough ones, of course. You and all of us, really. I'm not going to put it on you, but we always focus on his defense. But the shot making and the toughness and the fact that they have a not what I would call a logjam at power forward, Derek, right now.
Right.
They need some bodies to fill out that position.
Yeah, they do. 100%.
And you know that he would be a minimum guy. Did you see enough, at least while we did have fun with him, knowing that he's probably not going to have the role that he had when guys got injured, but a player that you can look deeper down to your bench and say, all right, I can call his number because, he can do stuff still at that power forward position.
Yeah, look, offensively, I think he can contribute. I don't doubt that. I think his defense is pretty much an abomination. That has really been what drove my criticisms the past year. But like you said, they're freaking desperate. They have like nobody. And he can shoot. Like, I think that shot and the fact that he can, at least defend a bigger forward and contribute on the glass. Like, would I complain too much about a minimum? No, I wouldn't give him more than a minimum, but like a minimum, sure. Like the offense is, and the shot is, he will have 1 out of every 5 games where he looks really good offensively. And considering what else you have on the roster, I wouldn't complain too much. I do think his defense is really bad.
Well, look, he'll be
Really
out
bad.
there. He'll be out there with Andre Drummond now, who at least is going to grab the rebound if the player gets the shot off on Marcus Morris. So
Yeah.
at least the rebound will be secured, and then you'll have
Yeah,
that
but you got to
Drummond.
force a miss before you can worry about the rebound, Devon. I'm not sure how many
Well,
misses that group's
he
going to
will
force.
do. He will do some of that. He will do some of that. We'll see. We'll see how it all plays out with Marcus Morris and the Philadelphia 76ers. Maybe that is a reunion that we see here. And look, he might have that game like he did against what did he have in that Cleveland game? He and Donovan Mitchell were the only. No, Donovan Mitchell didn't even play. What do you have, like 25 where he couldn't miss in that game, the elimination game against Boston?
Right.
He was cooking them.
Mhm.
But he
No,
probably gave up 25.
like I said, one in 5 games, he will have a really good offensive game. I don't really doubt, and that would be fine if he was a better defender. I would be okay with a little bit of inconsistency. I don't doubt the shot. Not at all. That's fair.
Yeah. All right. Before we get to our mailbag questions, a little baseball thing on that I throw at you. Alec Bohm in the home run derby? I don't like it.
Okay, why? You're worried it's going to like mess up his swing like the old Bobby Abreu
That's
argument?
not who he is. Just go ahead and, you know what I mean? Just go out there and enjoy your first time. Well, look, you are enjoying it if you're going to accept the invitation to be a part of the home run derby, but that's not who he is. Now, batting practice, sure, you can hit the ball all over the place, spray it all over the place. No big deal. Somebody jokingly said in the chat, was he practicing for all the doubles that he's going to hit? No. He's a doubles hitter. Yeah, I don't, you know. No, you're a baseball guy too.
He's leading the league in doubles, isn't he? He's like right up there.
Yeah, those kids are going to get a lot of work out there in the infield. You know how they have all those kids out there for home run derby, all the kids right at the warning track. That's probably what we're going to see a lot with Alec Bohm. Good luck to him, though. I'm glad he made his first All-Star team. He, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper named the starters for the National League. All right, let's get to my bad, Martian. Let's get to our mailbag questions. We have a few in here that we want to get to on a Mailbag Friday here. And Bren, let's start with the first one that you throw up there on the screen. We'll go with that one from Derek. You read the name because I'm not going to do it. I already have the tiramisu and the mercy.
I mean, I would just say M. Golden Pine.
All right, there you go. M. Golden Pine. They can use a player taller than 6'5" that can pass to add to the roster. Best short-term option and best in-season target. M. Golden Pine. Thank you for the question, Derek. What is your answer?
It's a good question because I feel like a lot of the people we talk about, they're not really great passers.
No.
And quite frankly, like if you're that tall, like it sounds like he's looking for, the next Batum. I'm not sure I have a great answer for that. There aren't,
and it's not Dario Saric. So let's not.
I mean, he certainly can pass. I just don't trust his ability to play the four. We've talked about that quite a bit here.
Mm-hmm.
And Dorian Finney-Smith isn't really a passer, although I think he might be the best option that's out there right now. I'm not sure I have a great answer for that, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Unless there's a trade candidate out there that I'm not thinking of that I don't think is available.
Yeah,
it's a real weakness. It's a passing on this squad is a real legitimate weakness.
And as you say that, sorry, and Winona had asked a little bit earlier. She said, "What about Spencer Dinwiddie?" Absolutely not, especially when you're thinking about the passing. That's not what he does.
And he's a type where like 1 out of every 5 games he'll look like LeBron, and then the other 4 games it's like I can't put this guy on the floor. Like he's very streaky. Very streaky.
And Lonnie Walker, as much as we talked about his offense coming off the bench, Haywood Highsmith, we discussed them. They're not known for their passing either. But Pump Brian, I'm so used to seeing him now, we just call him Pump. Brian says it would have been nice to have Joe Ingles, but he's gone. I didn't think Joe Ingles was going to be available. I thought he was going back to Orlando because that's what the language seemed like when he was waived by the Orlando Magic, that was an agreement that they pretty much had in place, but he goes and signs a 1-year deal with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, hindsight being 2020 now, Derek, looking at him, could he have been that answer to the question? Your turn for the mute button.
Oh, darn it. Now
that's all right.
It's because I had to cough. Like I was being smart.
I know.
It's not quite as bad as doing it during an ad read, but I apologize. No, look, in terms of shooting, off-ball movement, connected passing, he certainly would help there, yeah.
Yeah, he would have. Yep, he absolutely would. All right, what's our next one, Brenna, as we check out? Hey, Aaron, what up, Aaron? What intrigues you guys the most or concerns you the most about this year's Olympic team. Wow, Aaron,
So
thank you.
intriguing, Joel Embiid playing with the Olympic team. Concerning, Joel Embiid playing with the Olympic team.
That's the 1 and 2
Yep.
right there.
Not
That's
because
the 1 and 2.
look, I've been pretty adamant that if this is big for Joe, he should be able to play in it. So it's not that, but like, am I going to worry about him getting injured? Yeah, of course. Every time he lands on a jump, that should be a rule. No jumping, Joel. Every time he lands, I'm going to be worried. But, I guess a more realistic answer. That really is a realistic answer, though. Like, I'm confident this squad can go out there and win a gold. So what it comes down to for me isn't so much team success. It's how does Joel Embiid look? How does Joe look playing next to Steph? How does Joe look playing in double big lineups? How does Joe look in 15 different scenarios we can concoct? That Joe and how he fits and how he looks is going to be my focus.
And that's it. You have experience there. You have youth there on that team. But it's really about Joel Embiid, his health, how good he is in terms of his health and getting through this thing unscathed. But here's what I like about it is that we've talked about this before because we addressed this a little bit more on Wednesday towards the end of the show. But I like the fact that he's going to be playing. So when we discuss oftentimes, Derek, about him coming in shape, not being in shape, not being in tip-top shape to start off training camp, and that's when he's getting back into it, he's going to be with this team for a month. Yes, and they're going to be playing. So he'll probably have a month off or 3 weeks off afterwards. He couldn't possibly blow up in that time if he's going to stay on it just to keep active. But I do like that part. That is the intriguing part of it, more for the 76ers. As far as the team overall, they built a pretty good team. Selfishly, of course, I thought I felt like some other players would have made it.
Who, Devon? Who would you like to have seen on that roster?
Yeah, well, I especially don't like it when they talk about injuries and Kawhi Leonard. Is he going to be out bringing Derek White on the team? Yeah, I get it. He won a title and all that stuff, and he is a two-way player. But of course, I would like to see Kale. Yeah. I thought he earned a spot last year amongst them. Tyrese Halliburton and Anthony Edwards are the only two from the last year's team for the FIBA team. I also looked at the Tyrese Halliburton, Jalen Brunson thing of who should have been on that team more. Jalen started last year. Halliburton came off the bench. Halliburton had more moments, but I thought Brunson was looking to do more of setting up his guys where Halliburton was, scoring a lot. And so I was curious of why Grant Hill went the way that he did. He and the staff putting it together. But there's a discussion there. But all in all, I mean, they have everything. They have Drew Holiday to defend and try to shut things down. Anthony Edwards, again, as we just talked about him, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, Bam Adebayo, Anthony Davis. They have a number of players that we should believe that they should be playing for the gold once again.
Yeah.
You want to hit the bell for not a minor, but a big enough move. Hit the bell. According to Shams, we have Orlando Magic forward Franz Wagner agreeing to a 5-year max rookie deal worth up to $270 million for the Orlando Magic.
Good for him. And look, I like Franz. I'm real interested to see how he progresses. Is that a big money? Yeah, but like that's what like rookies who show that kind of talent. And I think he's going to be real good. Like he struggled a little bit this year. I think almost all of that came down to the 3-point shot and the regression. I do believe in his shot, and then I believe in the rest of his offensive game. Look at 22 or whatever. That's you got to give him that contract.
Yep, absolutely.
The 25% maxes that rookies get, I think a lot of times people will look at it. It's not the same as like a 35% max. It's not as damaging. It's not as risky. These are contracts that young players showing that kind of potential almost always get.
And as soon as we announced that, a lot of people were like, what? Overpaid. Wow. He paid all that stuff. Well, this is the nature of doing business when you have a cornerstone for your franchise and they're good enough and they're on the up and up. They're up and coming.
Yeah.
He's going to get that contract and he's going to get that and it's fine. Yeah, I agree with you. It was more the shooting, the outside shooting That didn't work out. They also extended Jonathan Isaac the other day, gave him an extension, more so in that, $80 million range. Paolo will be up soon, and they'll make sure that they take care of him. Let's get to another mailbag question, and then we'll get to our super chats in just a few seconds here. Threat level midnight here in the mailbag. Is Justin Edwards getting minutes for the team this year? He's on the 2-way contract, Derek.
No.
I agree. He's going to get a lot of minutes with the Delaware Bluecoats. Now, maybe we'll get a chance to see him and talk to him, but he's going to get a lot of minutes. I'm curious to see what he has to say out there in Summer League, where we'll be beginning on Tuesday, but he'll get a lot of minutes in Summer League, we think, and then a lot of minutes with the Delaware Bluecoats as part of their team. He's so young, man, that you can allow him to go ahead and continue his development with the Bluecoats. Yeah,
and look, we saw last year with Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse would prefer not to play young players, especially on a contender. Like, it took a lot to get Ricky minutes, and Ricky's a much older player. So, like, do I mean that even dismissively? No, it's not like I say he's not going to get minutes dismissively. It's just they're a contender, and Nick Nurse historically doesn't lean on young guys as much as I think fans want. So, no, I don't. And quite frankly, Justin's a little bit raw. I don't expect him to come in and see the floor outside of either garbage minutes or desperation.
Yep, I agree. Any more mailbag questions that we have?
I think we had one more from...
One more?
Yep. P. Kirkner.
All right.
Is Larry Jance Jr. a reasonable midseason trade target? I wouldn't go that direction.
No.
Like I said, if I'm going to invest heavily in like a big man, they need to play alongside Embiid. And I know Nance Jr.'s percentages from 3 have been reasonable. He doesn't take very many. It's very low volume. Teams really aren't going to be guarding him out there all that much. I would not invest resources in trying to pursue him.
No, I agree with you. No, not right now. And right now, Andre Drummond, who is not really a playoff performer, but if you're going to do that, I agree with you that it's more of who can play with Embiid and give you a couple of minutes there at that spot. All right, let's get to these super chats as we check in with the folks out there. First, real time with Prince Blue. Windhorse/media would be different if it was LJ.
So he submitted this while we were talking about big threes. And I think he's talking about Windhorst, basically poo-pooing Paul George, switching teams. So right. I think he's referring to that. Well, I mean, first of all, yeah, he'd be different in part because LeBron James has proven a heck of a lot more. So I do agree with that. And I saw Real Time complaining about, the media being out on big threes now where they weren't in the past. And I agree with him there. I think a lot of it comes down to, like I said, that second apron and how much more difficult it becomes to try to build and maintain these big threes. But I think there's also probably just some fatigue from the media because every year something like this happens. You make a big deal out of it. And a lot of times it doesn't work out. We can talk about Brooklyn and that. You can talk about, Phoenix, although I wouldn't consider Brad Beal a big three, but still, like, there's a big deal made about a lot of these. And quite frankly, most of them don't work out. And that's because there's only one winner every year. And a lot of times when these big threes are being built, they're older and deeper in their careers. There's a lot more that can go wrong. If you, like we said before, if you could draft a star or sign a 25-year-old, you would have done that over Paul George. It's just not there. That is some of the inherent risk. But I also I saw Real Time again at one point in the chat, bringing up this still residual hate from the process. Maybe for some people, Windhorst at various times has been pretty supportive of what the Sixers are doing. He's certainly broken a lot of news about what the Sixers. I think it's a little easy to sometimes lump any media member who you disagree with as, oh, they hate Philly, oh, they hate the process. I think Windhorst, if he probably has a bias here, I'm not saying he does, but if he does, he might just not believe in Paul George, which is his right to have an opinion. Yeah. But I think Windhorst has been a pretty good, certainly as a newsbreaker. I think he's risen the ranks over the last few years. If he has a different basketball opinion than mine, that's fine. I don't think it's necessarily malicious as much as he just might not like Paul George.
Yep. Fair. Mr. Put In Work says, is Sadiq Bey an option? We've talked about Sadiq. He tore his ACL in March.
Yep.
And if you do get him on any kind of deal, it's probably going to be on some sort of minimum deal. Show me, or just have him sign up, come in and get some rehab going. for the possible stretch run in March or April. So unclear. He is an option just simply because he's free and no one else has signed him. But I wouldn't expect much because he's still rehabbing from that ACL that he suffered again in late spring as a part of the Atlanta Hawks. So, yeah. But it was a name that we talked about.
And again, the reason that nobody is really all that, suggestive of pursuing him is because you don't expect him to be ready for quite a while. And the Sixers have like 4 players you're ready to count on, so they need to aim a little higher than, he might be available in March.
Isn't it funny when Kevin Durant tore his Achilles, Klay Thompson tore their Achilles? 5-year deals, no problem. Yeah. Sorry, Sadiq Bey, nice player. One that I've talked about wanting the Sixers to look after is just not on that level where he can secure that kind of deal, even with the injury that he's right now rehabbing. So good luck to him. I root for him, so I would like to see where he ends up, and I hope he's able to make a full recovery.
Hate to say it, buddy, you are not Kevin Durant.
Yeah, sorry. Brian Pump. Y'all about to hold your breath because USA versus Serbia is the first game, MVP versus MVP. We know the talent pool is good, Brian. We just said that they should be, as far as a team that Grant Hill put together, they should be in contention for a gold medal. We understand Serbia and all these other teams that have their squads. They're good. Canada, who we will see with the exhibition game in Las Vegas on Wednesday. There's some good teams out there. So the USA is going to have their work cut out for them, but that doesn't mean that they should not be in the mix playing for a medal.
Yeah. It will be. Like that's a perfect place to start off, though. Like that's a perfect opening game. Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that'll do it for us, folks. We hope we covered everything. We really appreciate you joining us on a Friday. Couple of hangovers, maybe some food hangovers is what I'm saying. Food hangovers from the 4th of July, or maybe you chose chill with Coors Light and did your thing there too. But we really appreciate you hanging out with us. Again, just to let everybody know, right now it looks like we're going to be off on Monday is because that's our travel day. We're going to be heading out to Las Vegas, and we will start our shows on Tuesday. But we will be with you then. And we'll be out there for a good amount of time covering Joel Embiid with Team USA for their exhibition game against Canada. And then for the Summer League that starts later in the week for the 76ers in Las Vegas. That doesn't mean that we won't be able to talk about what happened with the Utah Summer League, because we should be able to talk about that too. And watching Jared McCain, who did sign his deal. Derek, he did sign his deal with the 76ers, by the way. I wanted to make sure we mentioned that. He is officially a Philadelphia 76er. So we will be with you guys next week, beginning on Tuesday, live from Las Vegas. Should be our normal time, but we don't know yet. We're still trying to figure that out, but we'll make sure that we let everybody know. You'll follow us on Twitter, on our own personal Twitter accounts, and you can also follow the show Twitter account at PHLY_Sixers to see exactly what our week looks like for next week in our busy time out there in Las Vegas. So, Derek, it's time for a roll call, man.
Real quick on McCain, because he signed his contract, can't be traded for 2 months. Doesn't impact the Sixers cap situation outside of that, though, because in the past, there was a loophole where first-round picks only counted for 120% before they were signed, but almost every first-round pick was signed to 120% of the scale. That loophole has been cleared. His cap hold is the 120% mark, so there's no impact on the Sixers cap. I had to throw that in there since you brought it up at the end.
Yep. Appreciate that. All right. Let's roll call it, man.
So I guess in terms of, we'll start off with the super chats. Real time with Prince Bulu, Mr. Put in Work, and Brian Pumper were our real chatters of the day. Appreciate
what up, fellas?
You all. Moving on to the rest of the bunch. And look, I'm not going to, everyone knows I don't do this the same way Kyle does. I'm not as funny. That's not my personality. But I really just want to say, like, it's been great. Sort of like the response we've had over the last 2 weeks. It's been great seeing each and every one of you here every day. And it's been great, the community that I think we've built not only here, but also in Discord with our diehards. So again, I appreciate each and every one of you, even if maybe we don't get a chance to say your name out loud here. But it's been great seeing so many familiar faces each and every day. In terms of shout outs, Aaron, Jim G.
What up, Aaron?
Martian Lynch on fire as
Martian, always. Yes, Lynch.
Winona,
Jamie's cousin. What up, Nona?
Flyers in 7. Ziggy Marley, Lost Sleep TV.
Ziggy.
J Bart, And then we got a pair of Brian's here, Brian Knight and Brian Pumper. I'll even shout out Money Mar. I'm feeling a really good mood. I almost never shout you out, Money, but you haven't annoyed me in so much in a while, probably because I have you muted. But I will give you a shout out here. I appreciate you. Mar? Today, I'm having a good day.
On a Friday, having a good day.
That's probably why. It's probably because it's a Friday. Mr. Sandman, Mac Mole, SB Cole, Al Mac, Ezra,
what up, Mac?
Derek. Now, I'm giving Derek a shout out, even though he spells his name wrong. Like I said, I'm feeling generous. It is a Friday. Dave Doyer, Sean Edwards, Bobby B. Darkness.
What up, Bobby B? Bobby B, baby.
Do you want to do the darkness? Do you have the darkness down?
Darkness.
I haven't tried it, so I'm not gonna. You can't do that one live for the first time. Can't do it live for the first time.
All right. Okay.
Let me scroll, see if I can find anyone else.
I saw Jess in there. Jess, what up, Jess? Saw Jess in there for you. Al was in there. What up, Al?
I said Winona. Yeah, I said Winona.
Yeah, you said Winona.
You can't miss Winona.
No.
Slade, I see Slade.
Slade, I'm gonna get you, sucker. Yeah.
I think that's probably good. So many people repeat commenters. So
what up, Gene? Yeah.
All right.
We see it. Well, we thank you, everybody. Make sure you go like and subscribe, because if you do that, you will then go and get an alert, and it'll sound like this. And that's when you know the show will be coming up. So we did, Gene, ring that bell, brother. We really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Thank you to Brenna for stepping in for Brianna. We really appreciate Brenna doing this, hanging out with us. So for everybody here, of course, for Derek, Brenna, Kyle, Bree, we will talk to you next week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will see you from Vegas.